Hello everybody and welcome to my fresh brand new YouTube channel. My name's Otis and I am starting to populate my YouTube with a variety of things, but namely I write things down, I write pieces that I'm sharing on other platforms, and I wanted to turn them into video form, which is what this is. So I'm just going to get into it straight away. This particular piece is called Fear. What is it and what am I doing about it? A little insight into how I let fear control my life for so long and how on an ongoing basis I'm challenging that and working through it. So fear is a strange old thing. We have fears such as heights or spiders that are physical in nature, and in a way they can control or dictate what we do or don't do. They don't necessarily inhibit us too much in our day-to-day. There are other fears, however, that cause a little more turbulence in the way we go about our lives. We might pick them up when we're younger and carry them well into our adult life, and it isn't until we reflect on them deeply that we understand how they influence and dictate how we behave or conduct ourselves in certain situations. My story with fear started out when I was much younger. It's important to note that I don't blame anybody, parents, school, peers or otherwise, for these. I'm just matter-of-factly summarising how I experienced childhood and how I noticed these patterns carry forth into my adult life. At a certain point you have to take responsibility. We can say we turned out this way or that way because of X, Y and Z, but ultimately we're all human, and to be human is to every now and again. I like to think our parents were doing the best they could with the tools they had available to them and their parents before them, in whatever cultural, societal climate they were in. I could make a whole other post about this, so I'll continue on. When I was growing up, my sister had most of the limelight, and I was considered the golden child who didn't kick up a fuss, moan at anything, and was considered an utter delight. I didn't talk back until maybe my teenage years, and it wasn't because I didn't have anything going on upstairs, it was because I didn't feel a space was there for me to emotionally unload. Unfortunately, due to my mum and stepdad's relationship, I was often told to not say things that I felt were unfair or wrong, and instead vent it only to my mum and keep the peace. Don't ruffle any feathers. When we were out and about, we were often told to not do this or that because so-and-so might see. If I wanted to be silly or if I misbehaved, I was told off, but in a way that made me think about what others might think of me. Imagine if they saw you doing that. Don't do that, people will think you're stupid. I quickly learned that what others thought of you, apparently, was very important. It wasn't always like this, and for the most part I had an incredibly good upbringing and was taken abroad several times, always had routine and healthy meals and consistency, and was allowed to pursue things I was interested in, like swimming, badminton, and even a bout with esports. I know a lot of people who have had it far worse. As I said earlier, I'm not victimising myself or blaming anybody, just providing context as to the fear I picked up throughout my childhood. Fear of what others might think or say, fear of judgment, fear of the consequences of your actions, so much so that you don't take action. In your formative years, you don't really ponder the idea of the consequences of your actions, which is the premise of free speech. You can say what you want, but be prepared to face the consequences of what it is you're saying. I didn't really have much to say. It was simply that I didn't want to embarrass my parents, so I made sure to stick to their rules and do as they said. It was all very subconscious. I didn't know how it would carry on into my adult life. I spent most of my 20s not really thinking about how this was impacting me either. I was a people pleaser, a big friendly giant. I always felt that it was strange how much I was in touch with my feminine side and how I couldn't fully relate to my male friends, and I tried to mask that as much as possible by faking who I truly was, to a degree. In essence, I was still me, but there was definitely a level of masking. I would regularly put my own feelings or thoughts aside and was insanely agreeable. It made me a good friend because I didn't really raise anything or make much of a fuss. I also didn't want people to dislike me, which meant I listened really well. Because if you listen, you can better understand/empathise with somebody, and people like people who listen to them. I would sit on fences, a lot, because to choose a side would mean the other side might dislike you. I can't even tell you how painful that became. At the age of 26, 27, it all fell apart. I went into a deep depression. I couldn't figure out how to reset this whole life I'd built around me that I was no longer happy with. Who even was I? What had I been doing this whole time? Going from pillar to post, mostly doing what other people advised was good for me. It was grueling. I got therapy, counselling, read so many books. I was trying, desperately, to understand my place in the world. What I came to realise was basically what I've described and outlined in the paragraphs above. But there is a difference between knowing something and then being able to change the cycles of behaviour and implement new ones. I knew that I was a people pleaser, but how could I stop that in my day-to-day? I knew that I cared what other people think, so much so that I didn't share my thoughts or feelings, but how could I change that? I discovered that I really liked writing. I remember when I was 6 or 7, a teacher wrote to my mum in a report that Otis really liked writing in an autobiographical way. It's like I've rediscovered that, and I wrote probably a book's worth of stuff, all about the world, me, mental health, fear, society, life, basically anything that I felt worthy of writing about. The problem is that that fear of what others think remained. Every time I considered sharing what I'd wrote, I had all these voices inside of my head. What if someone thinks this? What if they disagree? What if I get a bunch of hate? Still hadn't found the courage to share unapologetically. There are even more voices that get deeper. If I share stuff on social media, will people think that I want to make that a career? If I talk about not wanting to do a conventional 9 to 5, will people think I'm lazy? If I'm seen to be wanting to grow a following/community, will people think I just want to be an influencer or that I'm a narcissist? Will people say, oh, just get a job like the rest of us? What if somebody misunderstands my goals, my values, my principles, my reason for doing all of this? You learn to just play small and stay within this little box, and the longer you stay in there, the more uncomfortable it gets. It has played havoc with my mental health as I've felt completely stuck and not felt like I'd had the tools to pull myself up out of it. How do I even start, and where do I even start? Even over the last few years, I've started a few things up, like a podcast with my dad and starting a blog, but quickly I stopped and retreated back to safety. The themes above I've written about and shared about before, saying this is it, I've got it this time, I've conquered the fear. Then I would lack the consistency, question everything, think I'm kidding myself, and stop. So why is this time different? Well, more time has passed. I've done a lot more research into what I want to do and how. I've organised my mind. I've worked on consistency in other areas. I've improved my work ethic. I've stopped a few bad habits I had, and I feel like I'm more deeply aware of why you can't worry about what others think. It's not great to become detached, as it were, but that is how I feel in terms of the results or what anyone might say. An additional note is it's just more important to get out what I want to get out as opposed to worrying about what other people think. It's just got to be done now. It's like I'm detached from the results. I've just got to go, go, go. I really couldn't care less. This isn't about likes, views, or results. It's about ensuring I create and pursue what I want to do so that I can remain consistent and do something fulfilling with meaning, something that ignites my soul. Here are some things I've written down over the years to remind myself to not worry about what others think. Number 1, if you're worried about people perceiving you as trying to make it or wanting to be paid for doing what you love, I ask you to tell me of any parent that wouldn't want that for their child. Regardless of what anybody says, remember that you are worthy and you do deserve to be happy and spend your days enjoying what it is you do. Just because you might not want a 9 to 5 doesn't mean you don't want to work hard or add value. In fact, you probably will end up doing more work if it is something you love because you're passionate about it and want to see it succeed. Don't worry about what people might say in this regard. It's likely a projection or limited perspective in how we're deemed valuable by society. Add value your way, not on somebody else's terms. No matter what anybody might say, this is number 3, no matter what anybody might say, whatever their judgment may be, it will never be as painful as holding back or stopping yourself from doing the thing you want to do. The feeling of not posting or sharing or doing whatever it is that you're creative about, if you don't do it, it will manifest into feeling of regret. It will pain you deeply to stifle, censor, and silence yourself. Over time, that will only get worse as you think about if you'd have started earlier. If you happen to have already done that, like me, don't worry about time lost. Nothing you can do now. Try and make a conscious effort to start now. There is no better time. Number 4, don't worry about having all the answers or waiting until things are perfect. We can't know all of the answers all at once. Part of learning is going out there, saying or doing a thing, and then learning from your mistakes. So as long as you're being authentic and able to be both a student and a teacher, you can go out there without worrying if somebody might pull you up or question something of yours. It suddenly isn't personal in your mind. It's not an attack. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to not have all the answers. Number 5. Know that not everybody will agree with you, and that's all right. The internet is a lovely place sometimes, but equally a dismal and horrible place. There will always be somebody that wants to hate or make an assumption or disagree with you. Don't worry about it. You can't please everybody. And the more time you spend trying to please everybody, the more you'll box yourself in, because it is virtually impossible in today's day and age. Number 6, it is not a bad thing to want to grow a community/following. If you are a musician or author, you'd surely want to publish your work and also have people read or listen to what you've created. It's part and parcel of the creative process. Creatives didn't have the internet or social media before, and we've been gifted with this immense tool that we can utilize to share our creative expressions. It's okay to promote yourself and to promote your endeavors. If you're resonating with the words I've written here, it is likely that you have the same fears that I do. They are a strength. The fact that we might worry so much about what others think is something you can use to your advantage. It means you can parent that inner child of yours that fears sharing something and make sure you do everything in your power to protect and keep them safe. You can manage how you share, what you say, and how you say it, all with the insane ability of considering many viewpoints and considerations. It will only make what you have to say and create 10 times stronger. It will be a part of what makes what you create so amazing. I have these written slightly differently in my daily affirmations that I read to ensure that I can stop the part of my mind that wanders back into worrying sometimes. It reminds me that I'm on the right path and doing things for the right reasons. It reminds me my values and principles are well aligned and to not give a hoot what anybody else might say. They're not me and they don't know. Over the next few months, I will be continuing to build on this foundation, sharing what comes into my mind, new and old, in written format, podcast format, and video format. And that's it. Basically, it goes on to just give a little bit of spiel about exactly what I'm doing now, which is posting this video on YouTube and continuing to write and share what I write. And I thought this would be a good idea to put myself outside of my comfort zone. Everything that I've spoken about there in that piece is exactly what I'm now acting out. I'm starting to get into the implementation stage and integrating what I know by just getting out there and sharing. And I've always wanted to expose my writing more, and I thought that turning it into a video kind of format like this might be a good idea. I'm also going to just do some more free-flowing walk and talk type videos and post them here as well. So let me know in the comments if anybody does happen to stumble across this, if you enjoyed what I wrote, and yeah, I'll catch you in the next one.